everybody, thanks for tuning in to another video. This is River Street Marketing. Check us out on Facebook, River Street Marketing, Instagram, River Street Marketing, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Your host, as always, Preston Olson, with current headlines and major events. Thank you all for tuning in again. I appreciate it. We appreciate it here at River Street Marketing. We have something different for you in this video, and we're going to continue to do it with some video cuts, good audio with the titles, not spamming your screen, and you're going to enjoy this. Now, we've all seen our Facebook timelines, our Twitter feeds, our Instagram blow up with the Jimmy Kimmel monologue the other night about his newborn baby, and it is very touching. But instead of me responding to it, here's a video of White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer.
I think we share that concern for the Kimmel's child, as well as any child that needs care. And that's frankly why the president fought so hard to improve the bill like he did this morning, to make sure that there was that extra layer of protection for anybody with a pre-existing condition, no matter their stage in life. That's why we're fighting so hard for this. But I think most importantly, and I think at the end of Jimmy Kimmel's monologue, he said that there is no, we need to have some of these things that aren't Republican or Democrat, that they're American policies. And I think that's what the president's fighting for right now, is to make sure that we have a healthcare system that doesn't matter where you live or your background, that it takes care of people. We're making sure right now, and we've talked about this endlessly over the last month or so, but we've got a healthcare system that's not doing what it's supposed to. It's failing. It's costing people too much. It's giving people a card, not coverage. And what the president's trying to do by working with these members of Congress is to make sure that we have the strongest possible healthcare system.
The overtime pay rule is changing, but not just yet. It has passed in the House of Republicans on Tuesday. Now, this bill would let employers in the private sector give workers paid time off instead of overtime pay. The bill passed 229 to 197 and was largely along Republican Party lines. The Washington Post reports. Now, no Democrat voted for the bill, and only 6 Republicans voted against it and spoke out against it. While Republicans think the bill will give greater flexibility to employers and their workers, this notes that Democrats think that the bill undercuts the Fair Labor Standards Act. Now, many Democrats have spoken out over this. I'm going to play you both sides.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, too many workers in Oregon and across the country are still facing a great deal of economic uncertainty. They worry about rent payments, health care costs, saving for retirement, balancing family responsibilities and work, and making ends meet. Congress should be considering policy changes that support workers, not a bill that threatens their economic security. This bill takes away overtime pay, and instead, a worker gets a vague IOU for compensatory time sometime in the future, and only if the comp time does not unduly disrupt the operations of the employer, whatever that means. I would like to share the story of Anjanette. She said, "I work as a waitress in a restaurant in Gresham, Oregon that's part of a large chain. I have 3 children. I have never had a single paid sick day. A few years ago when I was working in construction, I sprained my ankle badly and couldn't go to work for a week. I didn't have any paid sick days, so I lost a whole week's pay, which meant I wasn't able to pay all my bills and I wasn't able to pay for gas." Now, Anjanette is a single mother of 3 sons who also struggles to care for them when they get sick. In fact, when her youngest got the flu, her older son had to stay home from school to care for him. In May and June, we celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day. This is the perfect time for Congress to focus on legislation that allows parents like Anjanette to be more present in their kids' lives and still pay their bills. Instead, this legislation would result in taking their overtime pay from their pockets. The so-called Working Families Flexibility Act is not a solution. I urge my colleagues to reject it, and I yield back. Thank you.
This week, we will finish our work on the final appropriations bill from the budget, and it was a bipartisan effort for the Republicans. Our priorities were the certainty, the security, and the accountability. As as you think about the importance of funding defense, that is the #1 priority of the federal government, is to keep this country safe. And I'm proud this bill reflects that priority. It also increases pay for our military, which is really important. It provides security funding for our border. For me, I'm pleased to see the funding for NIH, which has been a Republican priority through 21st Century Cures, so that America will continue to be the leader. We need to be investing in that health research. I'm also pleased to see the funding for fighting forest fires, which is a continued threat in the West. But really, this allows us to go to work on this year's budget, which is our opportunity to really change the course. Balancing budgets, reversing what we've seen in the deficit spending, really going after reauthorized spending, rethinking the federal government from top to bottom, every program, every agency, so that we do have an efficient, effective, accountable government. I'm also very excited to see us moving forward this week on the Working Families Flexibility Act. Very proud of the leadership of Martha Roby on this effort. She's gotten it further than anyone else. And as you think about empowering people, individuals, working men and women in America, I don't think there's anything more powerful than giving them more control over their time so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. And I'm really excited we're moving forward with it.
Now, interesting enough, and this is really interesting enough, because I can tell from what I've seen from both representatives, and representative out of Washington, the Republican, always well-spoken, Kathy McMorris Rogers. She's going to lead us into our next and final segment. But where we're at right now is good. Because what I'd like to say is that neither one of these well-spoken women nailed this. And respectable to their points and as well-spoken as they are, they forgot to mention that this is the greatest choice of freedom when it comes to overtime. We've never had this, and now it is a choice. If this passes the Senate, the Trump administration has signaled that they would sign it in its current form. What I'd like to say, to just close this out, is that you will be able to choose, if you're a full-time worker, do you want overtime pay for working overtime, or do you want to get a paid day off? It's going to be up to you.
Reuters reporting the U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday narrowly approved a bill to repeal Obamacare, handing Republican President Donald Trump a victory. Mind you, this is a victory that could prove short-lived, as the health care legislation heads into a likely tough battle in the U.S. Senate. The vote to repeal former President Barack Obama's signature domestic achievement, which enabled 20 million more Americans to get health insurance, was Trump's biggest legislative win since he took office in January. Now, I'm going to pause from reading the article here and say that's debatable. Okay, we're going to step aside here and say that's debatable. Back to the article. Putting him on a path to fulfilling one of his key campaign promises, as well as a 7-year quest by Republican lawmakers. We'll back away from that and say, if you call it that. Back to the article. It marked a reversal of fortune for the Republican president, who suffered a stunning defeat in late March when House Republican leaders pulled legislation to scrap Obamacare after they and the White House could not resolve the clashing interests of Republican moderates and the party's most conservative lawmakers. Trump has called Obamacare a disaster, and congressional Republicans have long targeted the 2010 law formerly known as the Affordable Care Act, calling it government overreach. But despite holding the White House and controlling both houses of Congress, Republicans have found overturning Obamacare politically perilous, partly because of voters' fears, loudly expressed at constituent town hall meetings, that many people would lose their health insurance as a result. Now, we know about the people who are paid to go to the town halls and show up and cause problems. We also know that in this article so far, it has put a negative spin on the health care bill that the House has just recently passed here. What I would also say is that we're going to continue with this, and then we're going to get into the challenges that lie ahead. With Thursday's 217 to 213 vote, Republicans obtained just enough support to push the legislation through the House, sending it to the Senate for consideration. No Democratic House members voted for the bill. Democrats say it would make insurance unaffordable for those who need it most and leave millions more uninsured. They accuse Republicans of seeking tax cuts for the rich, partly paid for by cutting health benefits. The legislation called the American Health Care Act is by no means a sure thing in the Senate, where the Republicans hold a slender 52 to 48 majority in the 100-seat chamber and where only a few Republican defections could sink it. As Republicans crossed over the vote threshold to pass this bill in the House, Democrats in the House began singing, "Na na na na, na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye," a rowdy suggestion that Republicans will lose seats in the 2018 congressional elections because of their vote. Within an hour of the vote, Trump celebrated with the House lawmakers in the White House Rose Garden. Quote, "I went through 2 years of campaigning, and I'm telling you, no matter where I went, people were suffering so badly with the ravages of Obamacare," Trump said, "we are going to get this passed through the Senate. I am so confident." End quote. This bill also keeps pre-existing conditions. I'm not even going to touch on that part of the article here. We're going to skip past that and go right into the challenges, but this does keep pre-existing conditions. Let that be known. Don't let anybody tell you any different. If they haven't read the bill, they need to. The pre-existing conditions will remain. There's nothing challenging about that. Now to the challenges ahead. The Obamacare expanded Medicaid. The government insurance program for the poor provided income-based tax credit to help the poor by insurance on individual insurance markets set up by the law and required everyone to buy insurance or pay a penalty. Hence the Obamacare. The Republican bill would repeal most Obamacare taxes, which paid for the law, roll back the Medicaid expansion, and slash the program's funding, repeal the penalty for not purchasing insurance, and replace the law tax credits with flat age-based credits. In a sign of the challenges ahead for the legislation, nearly every major medical group, including the American Medical Association and the American Hospital Association and the AARP, advocacy group for older Americans, strongly opposed the Republican bill. No surprise there, folks, away from the article. It's really no surprise the AARP, of all organizations, opposes this bill. Now, there are some other organizations. There is a concern that needs to be addressed within the bill, but this bill is going to repeal the defects of Obamacare and replace it with a much better, more grounded system, especially when it comes to the tax code. Now back to the article. Many said last-minute amendments further eroded protection for the most vulnerable groups, including the sick and elderly. Quote from Senator Bob Portman, the Republican. "I've already made clear that I don't support the House bill as currently constructed, because I continue to have concerns that this bill does not do enough to protect Ohio's Medicaid expansion population." So when we talk about challenges, folks, and now I'm getting away from the article, end quote, the challenges here are going to be that, yes, there's going to be some divide in the Republican Party, a lot of rift, but we will know if the men and women we voted for in the Senate are doing the job for us. If they do not get this bill passed in the Senate, that is a stunning failure. So I will, just like everybody else, continue to watch, continue to monitor the situation. This bill, its fate is unclear. I have faith that it will pass. I know like-minded independents like me and conservatives around are coming forward and voicing their support for this bill, but this is a bill that must be passed, folks. Please comment your suggestions on where you stand. That is my opinion. You've heard the article from Reuters. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment, subscribe, share it to your friends. Let them know we're going to be consistent with our videos. We're going to only get better. If you have the time, throw $5 into PayPal. Don't mess around. Other than that, folks, have a great night. Facebook.com/River Street Marketing. Facebook. We're updating it all the time. We're focused on keeping Facebook updated all the time. Merchandise coming soon. We will sell it through PayPal and Instagram. Our Instagram is River Street Marketing. Type it just how it sounds, folks. Just like the hands of time, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you have a good night.